Something extraordinary is happening in the U.S. housing market right now, and most people aren't paying attention to it. The headlines may suggest stability, but the reality beneath the surface is far more alarming. For the first time since 2008, the foundations of the American housing market are showing cracks. But this time, the problem is different, deeper, and in many ways more dangerous. What's unfolding today could transform not only the way people buy and sell homes, but also the entire trajectory of wealth building in America. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We break down the real numbers, the real data, and the real stories that mainstream outlets gloss over or bury beneath political spin. By subscribing, you're making sure you have the tools to protect yourself, your family, and your financial future in times like these. Let's start with the national picture. According to the most recent Redfin data, the median home price across the United States is hovering around $446,000. At first glance, that doesn't sound like a crisis. It's about 1% higher than last year, which could easily be mistaken for stability. But this is where the danger lies. A headline number doesn't tell you the full story. Prices appear stable only because the market has fractured. Beneath the surface, homes are taking longer to sell, sellers are slashing prices, and first-time buyers are being squeezed out of the market altogether. In fact, nearly 1 in 4 homes listed for sale right now, over 22% nationwide, has experienced a price cut. That's a sharp rise from just 18% a year ago. It's a sign that sellers are struggling to find buyers at current price levels. Meanwhile, the average home is sitting on the market for 40 to 43 days, the longest stretch in years. For a generation accustomed to bidding wars and houses flying off the market in a week, this slowdown is shocking. The most alarming statistic is the collapse in first-time homebuyers. They now account for just 24% of all purchases, the lowest share since records began more than 4 decades ago. Think about that. Nearly 3 out of 4 buyers in the U.S. are not first-time buyers. They're investors, repeat buyers, or people with significant equity. The entry-level buyer, the engine that traditionally drives housing demand, has been sidelined by unaffordable prices and high borrowing costs. Affordability has become the defining crisis. To comfortably afford a median-priced home today, households need income levels dramatically higher than the national median of about $96,500. In many markets, the required income is more than double the average family's earnings. That's why homeownership is increasingly concentrated among wealthier households, while millions of ordinary Americans are being locked out permanently. Even Jerome Powell, chair of the Federal Reserve, admitted in July 2025 that the housing shortage is beyond the Fed's ability to fix. Powell said plainly that the issue isn't just interest rates. It's the fact that America doesn't have enough homes, and that shortage will persist for years. When the man in charge of the country's monetary levers says he can't solve one of the most pressing economic issues, the system has moved into uncharted territory. Let's look at specific regions to see just how bad things have gotten. Take Austin, Texas, once the poster child of pandemic-era growth. Home prices there have collapsed nearly 18% from their 2022 peaks, with some neighborhoods down by a staggering 30% or more. In one zip code, 78736, prices dropped from $750,000 to $468,000, a decline of nearly 38%. The reasons are clear. Massive layoffs in the tech sector from companies like Google, Meta, and Amazon drained demand, while the city's office vacancy rate skyrocketed to 26%. Downtown trophy buildings now sit 1/3 empty. The local market's new listings to pending sales ratio has fallen to 0.58, well below the level that signals stress. And with over 65% of home sales in Texas involving price cuts averaging more than $12,000, the word correction no longer applies. This is a market in crisis. Texas inventory tells the same story. Nearly 142,000 active listings are now on the market, the highest since 2011. What makes this especially troubling is the pace. Inventory is rising at nearly double the rate it did during the build-up to the 2007 to 2008 crash. Builders, desperate to move product, are offering massive incentives, sometimes as high as $125,000. Major companies like Taylor Morrison and Highland Homes are slashing prices and offering mortgage rate buydowns as low as 3.49%. These are deals that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. but today they're necessary just to attract buyers. Florida faces a different but equally devastating challenge: its insurance crisis. Homeowners there are now paying an average of $2,625 per year in insurance premiums, about 24% above the national average. In some coastal counties, premiums top $9,000. As a result, as many as 1 in 5 Florida homeowners are now going completely uninsured. That's not just risky, it's catastrophic in a hurricane-prone state, and the housing market is already reacting. Cape Coral and Fort Myers have seen prices drop 11% over the past 2 years. In Naples and Punta Gorda, prices are down more than 14%. More than half of all homes for sale in Florida now require price cuts to sell. California's story is one of extreme affordability, or rather, the lack of it. The state's median home price stands at $866,900, and in San Jose, it's nearly double that at $1.6 million. To buy a mid-tier California home today, a family would need to earn around $237,000 a year, over twice the actual median household income. No wonder nearly 300,000 households have left the Bay Area since the pandemic began. Even as tech layoffs have stripped away more than 25,000 jobs, home prices remain absurdly high relative to incomes. San Francisco condos are down almost 15%, single-family homes nearly 16%, but affordability hasn't improved. For the typical family, ownership is still impossible. This isn't just about prices, it's about concessions and incentives. Nearly 45% of all home sales nationwide now involve concessions. Sellers are covering closing costs, paying HOA dues, offering tens of thousands in credits for repairs, or buying down mortgage rates for buyers. In some markets, like Seattle, more than 70% of sales involve concessions. In Portland, Atlanta, and San Diego, the numbers are above 60%. Builders are in the same position. Surveys show that 2/3 of builders are offering incentives, while over a third have slashed prices by an average of 5%. D.R. Horton, one of the country's largest builders, is aggressively buying down mortgage rates for its buyers, sometimes under 5%, and adding up to $10,000 in closing costs and move-in packages. Nearly 80% of their buyers now choose these buydowns. It's helping them move inventory, but it's also cutting into their margins. What makes today different from 2008 is that mortgage delinquency rates remain relatively low. In 2009, nearly 1 in 4 homes were underwater. Today, it's closer to 2%. Lending standards are tighter, so the risk of mass defaults is lower. But don't let that fool you. The crisis today is not about bad loans. It's about affordability. Millions of families are locked out of homeownership altogether, creating a permanent renter class. Homeowners now have a median net worth of over $400,000, while renters average just $10,000. The wealth gap is exploding. Even the construction industry is flashing warning signs. The NAHB Housing Market Index has been in negative territory for more than a year, and housing starts have dropped to about 1.3 million annually. Permits have stalled. Builders haven't laid off workers in large numbers yet, but that day may come if conditions don't improve. Looking ahead, major banks see little relief. Goldman Sachs projects about 4% price growth in 2025, JP Morgan 3%, and Bank of America just 2%. More importantly, transaction volume remains at 3-decade lows. The consensus is that the market won't truly recover until at least 2027. For buyers, this is one of the few moments in the last decade where leverage has shifted to your side. In markets where inventory is high and homes are sitting unsold for 60 days or more, you have negotiating power. For investors with cash, the opportunities are even greater. The luxury segment, insulated from interest rates, continues to thrive, with million-dollar-plus homes showing the strongest growth. But for middle-market buyers, distress is creating chances to buy at a discount, if you know where to look. The real danger is pretending this isn't happening. The housing market today is not stable. It's fractured. Austin is already down double digits. Florida's insurance crisis is spreading. California's affordability crisis is driving families out. Inventory is surging in Texas. Sellers nationwide are making concessions at levels not seen since the last crash. The fundamentals are breaking down, just in a different way than in 2008. The question is not if this wave will reach your city. it's when. For some, the crash is already here. For others, it's still building. But make no mistake, this is one of the most important financial transformations of our lifetime. So, what should you do? First, don't panic. Use this moment as an opportunity. If you're a buyer, understand that sellers need you more than you need them right now. Negotiate hard. If you're an investor, focus on markets with the steepest concessions and the highest distress. And if you're a homeowner, recognize that your equity may not be as safe as you think. Prepare for turbulence ahead. The 2025 housing market is not a repeat of 2008. It's something new, something more complex, and in many ways, more dangerous. But in every crisis lies opportunity. The winners of this decade will be those who see through the headlines, read the data, and act with courage when others hesitate. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Staying informed is the only way to navigate a market this unpredictable. The housing crisis of 2025 is here. The question now is whether you'll be a victim of it or someone who uses it to your advantage.